good. All right, just click live. Okay. All right, we're back with Phil Hellmuth. We are going to see if this internet works. Sorry about that, everyone. We're going to check this out after this and make sure we can try to upgrade or something. I think we have the best internet possible, but either way, we have Phil back. Hopefully this is better. Phil, let's pick up where we left off. So we talked about positivity. You have your book out, and it's a very simple read, as in it's easy, quick. How long would you say it takes?
70 minutes, baby.
70 minutes, positivity. I mean, come on, why not? Give it a look. So Phil wrote this book, and as he mentioned, it is a really, really great thing to have in your arsenal and pick that up. So, all right, so positivity. We talk about the World Series coming up here. Does that excite you? Is it to a point, do you live for this? Is it your favorite thing when you look through a calendar and a schedule for the year? This is obviously you're the guy. You've got the most bracelets ever, 15 World Series of poker bracelets. Is this like your Super Bowl every year? Or are you kind of like, I'm enjoying home, I'm enjoying traveling, and this is kind of a grind? How do you come? Has it changed over the years for you, or is it always the same in terms of how you?
It's always the Super Bowl. It's the World Series. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's everybody loves the World Series of poker. That's how, if you want to be great, you have to be measured by World Series of poker. And to me, I just love it, and I just can't wait for it to start. I think one reason I have the bracelets that I have is the perseverance. Right now, last year I had a herniated disc. I never announced it. You saw me in the back hallways every day. You didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to tell one person. Brandon Cantu knew, Mike Madison knew, but I didn't want to tell one person I have a herniated disc. You know how painful it is? I mean, just to walk from the elevator to my room, I was so bummed out half the time. So I skipped a lot of events last year. And luckily, I had a little operation in August. Boom, it went perfect. The next day, I was walking perfectly. And so I was lucky with that. And so this year, and I still want a bracelet. I want a bracelet with a herniated disc, which I think is incredible. I was just, and I still managed to do all of the commentary for ESPN. And, but I mean, geez, I remember when I had to leave the booth to walk to the bathroom, which is literally 75 yards. I'd just be like, oh, every step hurt. So, when I think about, I can't help but go back to, health being the most important thing. And so that's on the very top of my list, but also right behind that, is World Series after family is World Series of Poker bracelets. And that's what I focus on. And that's what matters to me. And, JG, you and I are pretty lucky. We have great parking spots. That one year it was just you and me and Antonio with the great parking spots.
I remember that. They've upgraded to a bigger lot, but yes, for sure. Phil, I'm actually right now, I'm scrolling through, and you can't see this, but I'm just going to hotkey over here on the side. We're taking a look at the career of Phil Hellmuth and looking at the Hendon Mob, which is it's a cool site, how they keep track of results over time. You go back, get to relive and see some of the moments. I mean, we're talking, I was born in 86. This is your first Hendon Mob score. Do you know when it is? Do you remember? Do you remember the first tournament you ever cashed? You must.
I remember the first tournament I ever won because it was Easter Sunday, like 1988.
88, that's right. Pot of Gold in Reno, $200 buy-in for $17K. Man, that's actually looks like a fair amount of entries. So the first one you won, but let's talk about this first. So Reno, it looks like. Reno, you were dabbling around. The first tournament, you got fifth. It was a 1K, must have been a smaller field. But what got you into tournament poker? I'm just going to scroll through here as kind of you tell us what you were playing cash games, and then what made you decide to dive into tournaments?
Tournaments were kind of a way. I remember I had a knack for tournaments. I just kept winning them. And I was like, I couldn't help but notice I had a skill there. And I remember watching Stu Unger win a tournament, I believe at the Riviera Casino. And must have been 87, 86. And he was just raising every hand, and they were just folding like I couldn't believe how badly they played. And I watched him and I'm like, what are they doing? No one's making a stand. You know what I mean? And they finally made a stand after a Jack 9 deuce. I think it was Robert Turner, Chip Burner Turner. And he just picked the wrong time. It came Jack 9 deuce and Stu had a set of nines. But even that hand still looks super strong to me, and I would have folded. So I remember watching and going, wow, these are the world-class players. They don't even know what they're doing, is what I thought. And I just started immediately dominating in tournaments, which was great. And JG, when you look at my Hennen mob, starting January 1st, going to the end of 2003, I had 50 final tables.
Wow.
And it's just crazy. And I only play in the biggest tournaments.
Yeah.
And so
it's crazy to see how many seconds and thirds and fourths you have too, because I mean the number's 15 World Series bracelets, but I mean it's not, it wouldn't be crazy to have 20 or 25. I mean, that's the scary thing. I guess what's the next second place now? I lost count because I know you've separated yourself, but what is it?
Somebody told me I had 11 second places, which is more than anybody even has first places.
It is pretty.
Mike Sexton told me I had 11 seconds. He looked it up, and I had 0 third places, which is really weird. So 15 firsts, 11 seconds, and no thirds at the World Series of Poker.
I'm scrolling through. Let's see if we can catch a third. But we're just kind of. I am going
at
through
the World Series of Poker third. We're talking about.
Yeah, WSOP third. So I gotta say, yeah, it's a crazy resume.
You want to know how much skills in poker, JG? In 2005, Johnny Chan, Doyle Brunson, and I, all right, the three of us won 5 bracelets. There were like 40 events. How does that happen?
Wow, it's really
we were having a bracelet race at that point. He's up to 8. He's up to 9. He's up to 8. He's 10, and we just kept going. And then all of a sudden, when I won number 11, I think Chan and Brunson both just gave up. And I just kept going.
Yeah, I remember there was a 3-way tie, I believe, at 10 or something like that. You guys were around 10 or 9. It was neck and neck, and it was definitely a battle. But it's
the bracelet race in 02, 03, 04, 05, and 06 and 07. They wrote about that every day at the World Series of Poker, or every other day. And then when we get there, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's it's amazing to see over the poker tournament history. Not that many people have stayed in for that long or done well over so much time. So, I mean, it's got to feel good because there are all these young new wizards and different styles of play. And you hear GTO and, you got your White Magic, even battling with Doug Polk and Jungle Man at the heads up, televised stuff and coming out on top. But, it's got to be, is it fair to say your style is unique? And what would you say, I guess before we dive into the new era and the generation, how about what separates you? What allowed you, do you think, what separated you from back in the late 80s, early 90s? And when you said you just kind of dominated and took over in tournaments, you mentioned that players play tight, no one was taking a stand. Were you like contrarian? Was it that you were more aggressive? Like, what were people studying back then? There was a super system. You've written many books. What was that? What was the way of methodology of studying? Like, because it seems like people, like, if you 3-bet pre-flop, it was crazy until in the 2000s. Like, were you 3-betting a lot? Give me, like, stylistically what separated you, or what were you doing differently than other players?
I mean, it was very nice in that era. I could do a lot of 2-betting and 3-betting. And so 3-betting was super effective for me, but sometimes just 2-betting, just raising before the flop. You sometimes would have tables back then where they just weren't making enough stands. So the blinds and antes are up. They all made it deep because they were super tight, and they continue to play super tight. So I'd raise. I just kept folding, and I'm just building blocks. I'm just accumulating chips. And then when I was at a table where I couldn't do that, where I had to sit on my hands for 2 or 3 hours, then I'd just sit on my hands because then you had to play super tight. And then 3-bets were always effective for me. 3-betting I started using a long time ago. Just 3-betting light. I just realized if someone raises and I have a great read on them, but what separates me from everybody else? What is my methodology? Completely read based. Now, if there's flaws in their math, that's fine. I was able to expose that in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. But what really has kept me in the game is reads. So when they can be trained as much as they want to, they still have to look at me when they're making weak raises and re-raises. And I don't think I've been as sharp the last 3 or 4 years, maybe because I need to have some kind of glasses. I'm home for 5 weeks straight. I'm really thinking about getting the laser surgery because you have to see everything. You know what I mean? And a lot of the great young players haven't seen me at my best. They just know that I keep getting there. They don't understand how. But great recognizes great. So any great player in the game will tell you that I'm great and vice versa. But then there's a whole generation that's confused. You know, I baited Negreanu. I love Negreanu. I really do. I'm going to his wedding, but I baited him. You know, he said something about, I think I just beat Doug Polk and Jungle Man. And they said, oh, these are the two best heads up players in the world. What am I, frickin' chopped liver? So I beat both of those guys. Then I went to the Bicycle Club the next week and finished second in a 760 player field. For my first WPT, I was heads up 11 million to 11 million. I didn't get it done, right? And then Negreanu talks about I'm overrated at poker. And I'm like, why did you wait until I beat the two best heads up players in the world, allegedly, and finish second in this field of 760? I thought Daniel's delusional. He hasn't won a tournament for 3 or 4 years and doesn't want the spotlight on him. So he's coming after me. But I thought, wow, I'm going to have some fun with this. I'm going to have my first little Twitter war. But I thought 10 moves in advance. I'm going to do this and this and this. And I realized if I acted fast, I'd be baiting him. So he's like, oh, you're overrated. And I'm like, okay, name 40 players that are better than me.
Yeah.
But I came back really quickly, forcing. So then he came back quickly with 40 players. And I said, I'll bet $100,000 you're 40 players. So every time they win a bracelet, I'll give you $100,000 in cash. But when I win a bracelet, you give me $4 million. I offered that right away. He declined.
Okay.
Which was smart because 1 or 2 of his guys has won a bracelet, maybe 3 now.
Right.
But I won one, so he'd be down 3.7 million so far. And so, you know, and he always asked me to bet, put my money where my mouth is, and I did. Wow. But he backed down. But I could already see I was going to ask this and ask this and ask that, and so it was kind of fun. Everybody's like, Hellmuth and Negreanu were having a Twitter war, but there was never any like nastiness
you guys are
in
friends.
that.
You're having fun. I mean, talk about that a little
Tim,
bit. Daniel, I like Daniel as well. Get along very well, and he's it's good, man. He's a good ambassador, and it's fun. I got my baby coming, or else I'd be going as well. Gonna have to miss that wedding. It looks like it'll be a good time, and a lot of the poker community there. Talk about your relationship a little bit with Daniel or Antonio and some of these guys, because you're known as the poker brat. You put on a good show. How much of that is? And these guys ultimately you're friends with. These aren't like crazy battles or wars or dislike, but you guys, you put on a good show and have a good time and definitely battle at the tables, and there's a lot of ego in poker. Talk about some of your relationships with some of the top pros and maybe how it's perceived and what it really is.
Daniel loves me and I love Daniel. It's very simple. We get along great together. We're great together live on ESPN when he makes fun of me. I mean, he does a great job making fun of me. He's like, that's my job, Phil. And he really does do a great job. And there's a lot to make fun of. I mean, I'm a little too egotistical, all of the stuff that I do in public. And so, but Daniel loves me. I know this already. And, and he's never attacked me inappropriately. He's never come after my family, my wife, anything like that. He's only come after me as far as Phil's not a good poker player. And he's good for me. I think he's delusional, but he thinks I'm delusional. I think I'm the greatest poker player in the world, in Texas Hold'em tournaments especially. And he thinks that, that I'm not in the top 100. So he'll say I'm delusional for thinking it, even though I keep having all this great evidence behind me. And then, I think he's delusional for not recognizing that I'm top 40 at least. I mean, come on. I mean, all these guys, you have to go back, JG. You have to take it back in chunks of time. Over the last 5 years, there's not many players that have a better record than me in No Limit Hold'em tournaments where we're playing in the same event. In fact, it might be nobody. That doesn't mean that Fedor Holtz isn't great. That doesn't mean that, that some of these guys aren't just super talented and great players. But in the same fields that we play in, not many people have the record over the last 5 years. And so I just look at, here's the record. And I think Daniel just looks at, oh, you're not studying GTO. Well, I studied GTO and I just discarded it. I think there's big flaws in GTO. Now let's come to Antonio Esfandiari, who we both love, you and I.
Yes.
Antonio and I started Rocky, right? Antonio, but he'll admit he was a Rocky guy. He did some stuff back in the day that wasn't great. He beat Phil Ivey in a big pot to bust him out of an LAPC. And then Ivy, who never says a word to anybody, Antonio said, "Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out of the room."
Wow.
And the
I
whole
don't think I
table
heard
looked
that one.
over. We all looked over at Antonio. I wasn't there, but that spread through the poker world quickly. He was also, a little bit rude to me in some at a World Poker Tour event and some other events. And so we started off on the wrong foot. And then all of a sudden, we realized that we really like each other. And so, when he had his 40th birthday party, which was that earlier this year or late last year?
Or December like 10th, right around there. I remember. Yeah, that was fun. Yep.
And I flew in for his 40th birthday party, of course. And so he and I are going to make TV shows together. I think he and I are a great combination when we film together. We love to film together, whether it's on television or in the booth. And so, Antonio's great, and he's just a really fun-loving guy. He's laughing all the time. And so, all right, maybe he started rocky. And there are a lot of people that say I'm a little rocky too with my poker brat, but the fact is Antonio and I get along great. Daniel and I get along great. And I get along with almost every great player in poker extraordinarily well, from Phil Ivey to everybody, to Rainier Kempe, to all these guys. I'll laugh and joke with them. I'll drink with them. I'll have fun with them.
Right.
The younger generation I really like. And so people sometimes are like, oh, wait, Phil's against the younger generation. No, I'm not against the younger generation. I don't like GTO. I don't think it's effective, and I think it's starting to exit. GTO starting to leave.
I think on the GTO side as well, it's important to know what it is or understand fundamentally how that works. But the reality is, like, a lot of times playing in a live tournament or a live cash game, GTO is maybe not the best play. Being able to exploit, being able to make reads and in-game adjustments is important. Because if another guy doesn't know what GTO is, and you're just trying to play GTO against them, you can get tripped up. So I think you've demonstrated your success in large fields, just in all fields, but large fields, and knowing how to maneuver those. So you could argue however you want, but results, it's hard to argue with the results over what? I mean, we're talking over.
Listen, JG,
years.
I played in four. I played in four of the what's the one at the one drops. I played in 4 1-drops. Yep. Okay. I'm the only guy that has 3 top 10s. And I missed that final table by that much. I think I finished 10th and the final table was 9 the year that Doug Polk won. Doug Polk was all in. He had queens. Rainier had ace 9. And, if an ace comes, I'm at that final table. So instead of saying, hey, I played in 4 of these and I'm the only guy that has 3 final tables, my brag has to be I'm the only guy with 3 top 10s. So, and I only played in 4. Everybody else played in 6 or 7. So, I mean, I get there in the high rollers as well. I just don't think sometimes that they're good investments for me. The return on investment isn't good enough. I don't care. I'm not going to play $1 million buy-in with 24 players. That's insane to me. It's risking too much money. Can I raise $1 million like that from my friends? Yeah. Would I put up like 70,000 of that money or 100,000? Sure. But there's just not enough value.
For sure. I agree with that. I gotta stat check that with Antonio. I know he won the 1-drop. He got 3rd, I believe, in 100K 1-drop. But he's played more than what you said. You've played only 4. But I know he had some good results in that as well. He's had a sick 1-drop resume.
You can look it up, but I think he had a 12th.
Yep, you're right. No, but listen, there's no one's going to say you can't mix it up and tangle, but I agree with that too. It's not just an ego thing. You could sell whatever to whoever at any tournament play, but you want to play with your own money. You want to play in spots that you enjoy and that you feel are plus EV, and you don't just need to play every single high roller in the world. Whether you're one of the best or one of the best currently, it's like, why do you want to play with the other 20 best players in the world necessarily? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Those guys are taking my records away. Most money won. All right. It's bullshit. They have 10% of themselves. I mean, they're getting staked most of the guys are getting staked. And so they're on a 50% free roll. Then they trade 10% with 3 other guys. I mean, you look at the number of the people that are playing in these things that only have 10% of themselves. It's scary. And because of that, now 30 guys travel around the world and playing 50 of these high rollers, right?
Yeah.
And they trade money back and forth, and they move up the all-time money list and invalidate my records when they have small pieces themselves.
Yeah, I will say
I don't like that.
There was a period of time, it must have been 13, 14. I was playing in some of the Alpha 8s. That actually happened where I was 3-handed in the first ever Alpha 8. We were in the money, and one of the players, he wouldn't chop because he had 10%. And he was like, well, because we were going to make a deal. It was a lot of money, and it was pretty even stacks, and we had respect for each other. But one of the guys was like, hey, I only have 10%, and I can't really like do it, like make the deal with everyone. But it was just kind of like one of those things where you realize that is happening a lot, and especially at the Aria, which Kerry Katz done an amazing job. Poker Go, incredible. But there's these 25Ks, 50Ks rolling all the time there. If you live in Vegas and you see these numbers, they're hitting 400, 500K scores 2-3 times a week. It just gets it kind of inflates that record book stat in a lot of the ways. So good or bad for poker, it definitely. I agree with that, and there needs to be a little better way of record keeping or just to keep that more pure. But I don't really know an answer for that.
I think it's good for poker, and you brought up the name Kerry Katz, who is the person in poker that I respect the absolute most in the poker world.
Okay.
All right. I love Kerry, and I was at the Poker Awards on Friday night, and and probably I'm supposed to mingle around the room a little bit, but there was Kerry on my left and Maury on my right, and I was just so happy. I sat there for 2 hours and talked to those guys.
Yeah, that's a nice.
And I think Kerry can be a little shy. He probably would have left if I wasn't standing there talking to him. He probably would have left. Anybody that came by, of course, I'm going to say hello and smile at, and it's good to see so many people from the poker world for sure. But it was kind of compelling to Kerry's such an amazing guy, and what he's done for poker. He's poker's savior, but he's a genius.
Absolutely.
He is a genius.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the guy. The reason poker's on ESPN for 14 days straight, the main event, is Kerry Katz. The reason that that's why everybody should be supporting Poker Go. It's $10 a month.
Absolutely.
But Kerry put $25 million of his own money into making Poker Go work. And, it's a long road, and it hasn't been easy. We have maybe 50,000 subscribers. It gets to be 120,000 during the series. And but everybody watching this should support Poker Go. It's amazing what Kerry's done and continues to do. And on top of all that, he happens to be leading the high roller in points. He happens to be a great player on top of it all. And he almost won a bracelet last year. Did you notice that? He finished second in a field of like 3,000 people.
Yeah, I believe it was to motion, or maybe that was another one. But listen, I've looked at his Hen and Mob. It's crazy impressive. I mean, he sneakily, he just hits big scores. I mean, a lot of those are Aria 25Ks and such, but he's battling with the best, and he gets a ridiculous amount of results. So, there's no question he knows what he's doing. Phil, at some point, I am going to want to dive onto Twitter, because we have a Party Poker here. Let me flash over. Very graciously giving away 2109 tickets for the PowerFest to retweet the podcast that's live now and ask a question. So, and we could spend almost 2 podcasts alone at some of these questions. I'm going to scroll through, pick some of these. I do want to cover a few more things. We did mention earlier some investments we're in. We got the Lasso Athletic up here, which kind of has been, we both got into recently, but it's pretty fun, as well as Travel Smarter. I think, I saw you getting some, it was kind of funny. Some people were responding in a way where they were kind of skeptical or being negative about it. But, I think you and I both, we've done our research, dived in, and really, I'm probably the most excited between Lasso and this at what we have going on right now. It's pretty cool. So, it's just fun to be involved in investments and be able to do some cool stuff. And for you and I we travel a lot. So I don't want to make this an advertisement stream, but truthfully, we both are invested in this company, and I believe a lot in it. And I don't want to.
Well, Travel Smarter. Come on, you can talk about that for a sec, because everybody's going to benefit. It's a $10 a month subscription site, TravelSmarter.com. Listen, the reason you put a bunch of money into it and I put a bunch of money into it is because it's a win-win. It's also doing good for the world. We're going to save so much money. All of a sudden, you have hotels direct to consumers. The hotels themselves list at Travel Smarter their best prices, and somebody said, "Oh, well, I compared some prices between that and another site, and there was no difference between them." That will happen 10 or 20% of the time, sure. But if you want the best possible prices, the hotels themselves, no middlemen. Middlemen are gone. You pay $10 a month, and it's not just hotels, it's also airfare, and it's also like amazing trips. Like if you want to go on like a canoe ride or whatever. I
Phil,
mean, some of these like
I agree, and I got to rub it in here because Earth Picks. It's by Earth Picks on Instagram, who's Eric Damier and MySpace Tom actually, who they're the two behind Earth Picks. You can see it clearly there when you go there and see who they're following on there. The Maldives trip, I want to rub this in because in 2012, you and I, they just did a thing. They have this brand new room that is $50,000 a night, and it's underwater hotel room. It's pretty unbelievable. And I just got to rub it in, Phil, because you came to London in 2012 for the Olympics. I think you had a family engagement or something, but after the Olympics, when we went and watched Mike swim, we went Antonio, Phil Locke, who else, Dave Silverman, a couple other guys. No, we flew from there to the Maldives, and I know you had to go home and you missed that, but you did come and see the Olympics, and this was a special trip. And I know Eric Damier just did the rollout for that hotel we were at, the Conrad Maldives. They had the underwater restaurant at the time, but now they have the underwater hotel suite. So anyway, just want to rub that in, and that was one of their featured trips. But you know that was.
By the
was a
way,
big-
JG, I've made some mistakes, like with friendships, made some mistakes. So you and I went to London for the Olympics. Great time. We caught the opening ceremony. We watched Mike swim a bunch of races. It was awesome. But for me, it was like, okay, I got to get back to my family. I got to get back to my family. And so I went over there for what, 5, 6, 7 days. And I made a mistake because you told me, listen, Phil, stay another 3 days. And we were renting a boat on the River Thames,
Yep.
you know, and Mike and I and a bunch of us are going to party and have just a couple of good nights. And I thought, you know what, to me, the partying isn't that big a deal, but I should have found a way to stay. Remember, you and I also watched Team USA play basketball that trip.
Well, Phil, I gotta give you a big thank you. You got me a ticket to the opening ceremonies. That was a very great seats and very generous of you. So I appreciate that, and I definitely don't.
What a
forget that.
ceremony! I mean, we had to do that, right?
It was sick. I was sick. I've been to 3 Olympics. That was my only opening ceremonies, and it was definitely a special one. So that's a memory.
And then I went to hang out with Mike. Okay, in 2016, I went to his house to hang out with him for 3 or 4 days. You know, and I'll never forget this. I watched his workout, right? And oh my God, he just went and went and went. It was like, I mean, he lifted weights for like 3 or 4 hours. He swam for like 3 hours. But I wanted to be there for the full experience to see what the workout looked like. So that's what I did. I was staying at his house with his wife, who was, I believe, pregnant at the time.
Yep, he's got his 3rd on the way right now. Just announced. He told me a little while ago. It's crazy, man. Just living with them for 7 years and being there with Nicole, and then seeing them get engaged, married, and the kids. It happens so fast, man. But 3 kids is that's a handful. You know about that. So yeah, for sure they got.
It was interesting. It was interesting. You know what happened that was interesting, JG, is that now we're in this position where Mike's ready to play poker, and he says, Phil, all right, set the game up for whatever, 5, but I'm going to be leaving by like 7.
Right.
I told the guys, hey, we're going to have this game. He's going to leave by 7. And he left by 7, all right, 7 a.m. And I got to tell you something. This was the day before a playoff game. It was a Saturday night we were playing. And I remember looking over at him at like 4 in the morning, and I'm like, do I need to pull him out? And he was laughing and straddling and joking and just having the best time.
Yeah.
And he was just smiling all night, talking shit, just having a great time. And I'm like, this has got to be healthy for him. He needs this.
I'll tell you what.
And so I didn't pull him out. I didn't say a word. I said, hey, are you sure you want to be here? I told him at 5 a.m. And, maybe we left at 6. But, I mean, it was just,
I
got
to
look over him.
It's cool, Phil. I think one of the coolest things about what we do in playing poker, getting to see the world, all of that is awesome. But the friendships, the people, I met Mike at a poker table in Windsor, Canada. I was living in Ann Arbor. He went to the University of Michigan. This was 2006 in the summer. A lot of my other closest friendships are either directly from poker or indirectly from someone who played poker, or I met them along the way. So I think that's it's a huge thing too. People, poker has negative connotations in some ways, but a lot of the game is social. It's the mental challenge. Of course, if there's times where we've all played longer sessions than are probably normal, or that you would that are the best to do it, but sometimes you just need to disconnect and dive in and get immersed and have a good time and let loose. So yeah, I mean, it's like, teach his
Yeah.
own, and it's important to have that and be able to
Mike
rein it
wasn't
in.
drinking. He wasn't partying.
Yeah.
Nothing. He didn't have one drink, but he was just laughing and
Yeah, I
having
mean,
fun.
listen,
And
Mike loves poker, no doubt about it. And I think that's something
yeah.
we can all relate to competitively. Some at different levels than others, but to have that game, it's where Phil, you're not going to get in the pool and swim a lap with Mike and beat him, but he could beat you in any hand, or beat some of the other top players. And that's what's so fun about poker is you can really have a relatively equal playing field, or on any given day, anyone could match up and get the job
But
done.
JG, one of the reasons why I went to visit Mike is I always wanted to get that done and make it to his house, and it took us a while to come up with a date where I could do that. Was I wanted to go to Rio, and then with the whatever it was, the
Zika.
Ziva virus, whatever the heck it was, I found kind of an excuse not to go. And I also thought, all right, I got to see him in London.
Yep.
So, but that's another one I probably should have gone to. I mean,
Yeah,
it would
you
have
know
been so
what?
much fun. I
You
would have
never
been
know,
with
man.
you.
Listen, Mike said he's definitely done, but it's not zero. Like, not for the next one, but I could see Mike coming back. And I don't want to speculate anything. I'm just saying, knowing Mike and what a competitor and champion he is, and I don't think it's 0% that you don't see Mike at an Olympics sometime. I'm just saying it's not. I wouldn't be like, if someone said Mike's coming back to 2024, I think it's even in LA, so it's in the backyard, or the next one. Like, he's that kind of guy that could really turn it on and get fired up, or just be like, I don't want to be sitting here. I really want to do it. He's 33 years old. That's older on the swimming totem pole, but you look at Dara Torres in Beijing. She was 42 even. Some guy I forget his name, but the last Olympics in Rio, he took an Olympics off, came back and won the 50, which is a sprint. So, anyway, I just saying it's not. I don't think it's 0%. That's all I'll say. I'm not speculating or want to start rumors, but that's you can't count Mike out ever. Phil, we could literally go forever. I think you're definitely going to be a repeat podcast guest if you would be so willing at some point. So, but let's make sure we dive in. I know on Instagram and Twitter we do have this giveaway. I'm trying to look at my Instagram because there were a lot of good questions here. But let's get some of these questions dive through here. I mean, this is a lot, guys. There is an overload of questions. So let's dive through and kind of scroll through and pick out some before we get cut off here. Let's go with how to handle fame. So this is from Ivan Sandeloff. Since everyone who plays poker will know you, how do you use that? I guess I even take it further. How does that work for you? Because it's like kind of being a girl, I feel like. If you're a well-known poker player, they either want to be nice to you or they want to bluff you. And I would imagine that's where some of the greatness comes, where you get to know, all right, this guy's trying to tell his friends and make a hero call. He just won't fold to me, or he's going to bluff me. And no, this guy doesn't want to even confront with me. He's going to fold his big blind when I open. So talk about that a little. How do you deal with that at the table, and how do you use that to your advantage?
Well, there's two things. So the first one is how to deal with fame, which is not easy, and then how to deal with being Phil Hellmuth at the table. And so I'll talk about the fame first. The fame stuff blows everybody's minds. That's why 95% of the celebrities are crazy. I mean, or go through or seem to be crazy, because it's not a natural, normal thing to have everybody staring at you every day, and you know what I mean, and coming up to you for pictures everywhere I go, every day, pictures.
You also
everywhere,
are what, 6'4", 6'6", or 6'4"? 6'6"?
Yeah, I'm also tall, right? So I stand out. I'm also in
Yeah.
black and gold, so I stand out. But it's crazy. Until you're with me, you have no idea, right? And it's just people come up to me, JG, and they tell me they love me every day. I mean, I knew that I was going to transition from poker brat. I mean, can you imagine somebody telling you, that a random person you've never met telling you that they love you almost every day? That happens in Vegas. People want pictures and autographs every day, everywhere I go. Tons of pictures these days. And it's crazy. I've taken thousands of selfies this year already. And so dealing with that, and then going to Brazil and being in touch with the Don of Brazil, the biggest guy in Brazil, and his son finds me the first night at the stadium, and brings me, I was already in the triple VIP booth. He brings me to the quadruple VIP booth with all the actresses. And I mean, it's just crazy. I've been in town 24 hours. And then, that family had a bulletproof car waiting for me outside of the hotel every day whenever I left. Boom, there's the driver. Boom, go wherever you want, Phil. And just the whole experience of fame blows your mind. And the only thing that I can do that I've figured out is I take a chapter from my own book. I take that chapter of write down your blessings. So in Rio, my wife said, "You're too cocky." I mean, I remember one night I was with Roy Choi. You know, Roy Choi is a fan of mine, and we're sitting at his booth in his kitchen, you know, and there's Jerry Rice hanging out with me and coming up to me. And then we go to hang out with Nelly, and Nelly can't wait to talk with me. And he's talking for 5 minutes straight about poker.
Yeah.
I can beat Draymond Green and all this. Just one night in Vegas where I just went from movie star thing to movie star thing to movie star thing. Craziness, right? And then so my wife's like, "You're too cocky." Okay. So what did I do? I wrote down my blessings. What's my first blessing? Health. What's my second blessing? My wife and kids and health for them. What's my third blessing? Bracelets. You know, what's my like fourth or fifth? You know, financial security. And so then I thought, wow, you're all cocky about all this stuff that doesn't even matter. Yeah, you're hanging out with the world's biggest people, celebrities, billionaires, but that's not even your top four. So settle down and be happy for the top four. So for me to snap back out of too much ego, I really have to focus on my blessings list and kind of the top four things on that list. Now, as far as dealing with being Phil Hellmuth at the table, it's an enormous advantage, right? And I find I do a lot better when I'm really nice to everybody at the table. Okay. Because people, they wanna shake my hand. I realized this by 2006. Everybody wants to shake my hand. Everybody wants to ask me a question, and that's fine. That's normal. It's natural. And so, you know, I'm very patient in those situations. Occasionally, someone asks me a super awkward question, and I get thrown for a loop for a few minutes. Like, there's always these awkward people, right? And that's okay. But then I have a strategy for that too now. But generally speaking, because I have a reputation for playing so tight, I'm able to steal more pots, right? And you know, everybody kind of likes that saying when I say to them, I'll take this one, you take the next one. Everybody smiles when they hear that, and they start laughing.
That's a clean saying.
And a lot of times they will fold in that spot. And sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. But it feels like I'm able to use my reputation to accumulate a few more chips. And then also I have those people that are just trying to tell. They told me this in 2009, JG. They're like, "We just want to tell our grandkids we played a pot against you." I don't feel that. I just feel like I'm Phil Hellmuth, just a normal guy from Wisconsin. If you walk around feeling like that guy all the time, you're an egomaniac. And I try to fight that as best I can. So people are like, "I just want to tell my grandson I beat you a pot." Well, there is that subset of people. And then basically they end up giving me chips. They end up putting horrible beats on me too. Right. But at the end of the time, they end up giving me a lot of chips.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to quickly, before I forget, because this is, I mean, how can we not talk about this before we do dive into some of those questions? Winning the main event, tell me a little bit about that experience. How many days was it back then? I think it was 178 runners, if I'm not mistaken. 106, no, this was a different one.
178 is right, I think.
178. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Down here. Oh, there it is. 178 runners. You beat Johnny Chan heads up, who he had won the main already. Was this actually would that have been his third year in a row? Is that right?
Chan won it in 87 and 88.
So he was literally about to go a three-peat. You win in 89. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like. I mean, you just win $755,000. How old are you? You're 21, the youngest ever winner there. I mean, how do you wipe the smile from your face? I mean, you just beat Chan heads up. Like, that's got to be pretty incredible. Is there footage of that? Do they have it archived?
Of course, yeah. I mean, all you got to do is YouTube Phil Hellmuth main event 1989, and it shows me the last hand. It's like a 5-minute clip, and it shows me going like this, staring into the camera and turning around, looking for my father, who had attended his first poker tournament and saw me win the main event. And 750,000, which you probably have to multiply by 20 right now, is 15 million. But even if you just multiply it by 13, it's still like 10 million, right? So there's a lot of money to win back in 1989. That was an incredible moment for me, JG, and I had, Chan was actually going for more like the 5-peat. People don't know this. He won. There were 4 events you really wanted to win. Any bracelet, of which there were like 10 of those. All right. And then you wanted to win the Hall of Fame main event. You wanted to win Amarillo Slim's main event. You wanted to win the Bicycle Club main event. There were about 4 majors per year. And Shannon won the Hall of Fame main event 2 years in a row, and the main event at the World Series 2 years in a row. He was going for number like 5 in a row. It was an incredible run. He was just crushing everybody. And I told everybody that I'm going to win it. I left the voice on my machine. I mean, there were like 11 events that year in '89, and I left a message on my machine. You're talking to the reigning world champion of poker.
Wow.
That was almost 30 years ago. In May 18th, it'll be 30 years ago. And when I went and my father flew in, and it was the first time he ever watched me play. When he landed, I was at a final table of Pot Limit Omaha with TJ Cloutier. And unfortunately, I finished 5th. I remember my dad sat down. I said, "Hey, this is my dad. I want him to sit here." I'd never asked for seating in my life. So they let him sit in the front row or whatever. My dad immediately told a joke to the table, and I'm like, "Dad, we're playing for like $250,000 for first or whatever it was. You can't be telling jokes to the table." But I thought it was cute, and I was so happy he was there.
Yeah,
I wasn't even
awesome.
embarrassed. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. This is my dad. Don't mess with him."
Oh.
And I believe I finished 5th. That was Saturday night. But I had told my dad, I want you to go to trip on me. I had brought my mom on a trip to swim with dolphins and study shamanism in Florida Keys. I had brought my brother to LA with me and a bunch of places, cruise ships. And I told my dad, I want you to go to New Zealand or Australia with me. And he said, "No, I want to go to the main event." I'm like, no, I'll come back in 3 months. Same answer. I said, no, don't do that, because I'm not even going to be able to pay attention to you. I'll come back in 3 months. He said, "That's where I want to go." I said, "Fine." I said, "If I win it, I'm going to buy you a new car, and I'm going to win it."
Wow.
So he flies out there. I remember the first morning, he wakes me up at the Golden Nugget at 11 a.m. And he's brought like a tray of food I've asked him to bring, but he forgot the bananas. I'm like, "Damn it, Dad, you forgot the bananas."
Gotta have the bananas, man. That's important.
And I'm like, and my dad, my poor dad, he's like, he's never, and the next day he had everything perfect. Woke me up at 11 a.m. But I wouldn't let him watch me. Okay. Because my mom had watched me and I'd freaked out and blown a tournament earlier.
Okay.
And so I'm like, "All right, Dad, just hang out close by, but not actually physically watching me yet. I'm not ready." And so he was in the truck. ESPN was there in 1989. There's a whole show on this, me winning it. And he was in the truck. And the minute I won, my hands are up in the air like this, right? And you can see it on the YouTube video. And then I turn. And the reason I turn is my dad's running up the aisle, but there's $1 million in cash. This is 1989, sitting on the table. Security stops him, and I'm like, I wave him through. "Dad," and I remember just giving him a hug within a minute or two of winning it. And, and just saying, "Oh my God, this is the best moment of my life." And my father's there. And then fast forward to 10 minutes later, he's being interviewed. I'm being interviewed, and I glance over, and my dad's like, "Well, we knew Phil was special when," and he's going on. And I just thought, this is great. Here's my dad doing all these interviews. I'm doing all these interviews. And one of my lifetime goals, which I did write down, lifetime goals, which is the 4th chapter of my book that I've talked to you about. Yearly goals, writing your blessings down, taping them on your bathroom mirror, both of those. Hate hurts you. I talked about that chapter a little bit. And this is writing down your lifetime goals. Well, one of my lifetime's goals was, win the main event. So check.
Got it done early.
Oh, and I bought my dad a new Mercedes.
There you go. No sweat, no waiting. Just got it done right away. Well, obviously we need to talk about that. That's just, winning the main event is special as it gets. So we're gonna run through some of these questions and see here for Phil. Are there any crazy pots you can describe without naming names? I know you also get to play in some pretty special home games. I've dabbled in that arena as well, which is one of those things where certain times you just, some of the best stories don't get told, or the sizes or who they're with. But is there any pot, like a crazy run out or a ridiculous? Are you playing mostly Hold'em, I think, right? And you guys aren't playing PLO too much or other games. Was there any like pots that really jump out at you? Was like that was just unbelievably big or wild?
I'm thinking, I will say when I was practicing for the NBC Heads Up Championships in 2013, I was playing Hellmuth Heads Up.
Okay.
Hellmuth's my best friend. And he just kept getting in bad. He just kept calling it off with 10 jack, and I always had whatever, the ace 9, and he kept beating me.
Okay.
And I was just like, what the hell is going on here? I said, you're supposed to be giving me confidence. Stop calling it off with 9-10 suited and jack, putting these beats on me. And we were laughing, and we were playing like $5,000 a match. But there's always a lot of laughter there between he and I, and fun. And then I entered that NBC Heads Up Championships and got all the way down to heads up against Mike the Mouth, where there is a hand that the world saw that most of you probably don't remember. And I'll never forget this hand where Mike and I are heads up. He wins the first one. I win the second one. We're on for the championship. And I'd won this event in 05. Now I'm playing for the NBC Heads Up Championships. I know I'm a better Hold'em player than Mike for sure, but you still have to prove it. And I played badly and put in way too much money with one pair when he had an ace-high flush. And now I'm just starting to settle down. And this hand comes up where he raises, and I call with king 10 offsuit. And the flop comes down king, jack, 3.
Okay, the taxi cab.
And I check,
yep.
And he bets the pot, and I call. And the turn is a blank, and I check again, and he bets the pot again like 100,000.
Okay.
And I'm talking, and Mike and I talk about this, and we're trying to talk to Matt Savage about this, that right now the way they do the time is screwed up in tournaments. You should not have a 30-second clock. You should have more like a chess clock, because Mike and I fold most of our hands in 2 seconds. And then occasionally I need 4 or 5 minutes to figure out a hand. So does Mike, and so does Daniel, just to absolutely be certain. So I'm in the middle of a 4-minute process talking to Mike when I suddenly realized I have the nuts. And I'm celebrating on the inside for figuring out this puzzle, this riddle. And so I say, all in, 350, I had 357,000. 357 Magnum, baby. I just compared it to a gun. Just entertaining. 357 Magnum all in.
Yeah. And
Mike starts thinking, and I'm like, well, he would have snapped me with king queen for sure. So, I mean, I could see him studying 10 seconds with king. He study. And then he flips his hand up, queen deuce of diamonds.
Okay.
And then I'm like, God, he only has 9 outs. Maybe I'll try to talk him into calling. There's no way he's getting the math for the call. It's not even close. He had to call like, say 257. It only made sense to call like 90 more or something. Yeah. No math. And I start baiting him a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm like, Mike, this is your chance to win the turn. He's already decided he's going to fold. He has it face up, but a minute's passed, 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed. And I say, this is your chance to win the tournament, bro. What if I have bottom pair? You know how long I studied?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's like I talked him into calling, and he puts the money in.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is sweet. He calls it off, and now I'm going to have the chip lead, and I'm going to do, after he misses this, he's going to start swearing at himself. How did I call it off? What a stupid play that was. I know what he's going to do. He's going to blow up and just give me the tournament, and I'm going to have 2 NBC Heads Up Championships in my back pocket, which is sweet.
Yep.
But somehow, some way, the diamond hits.
Sometimes they get there.
He might have had 8 outs. I mean, maybe I had the 10 of diamonds. I'll have to go back.
I know a great poker player that once said, if it wasn't for luck, I would win every tournament, I believe. I've heard someone say that.
I mean, there's 44 cards to come. What does he have, 8 winners?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 9. He's 4-1 underdog. I'm supposed to take the chip lead. Anyway, that pot hurt.
That one stands out. Yeah, it is true. I think that also is a great Rounders quote, but it's like, you remember the pots, the big pots that don't come home or you lose. I mean, that's generally how it works. Of course, we win. We remember the big ones too, but the ones
you want a good beat hand, JG?
What's that?
You want to hear a good beat story or no?
Yeah, I want to hear a good one. 1 for 1, eye for an eye.
Good, because I like telling good beat stories more, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm playing at the final table. I want to call it 07, maybe 05, maybe 09. And for some reason, I limp in.
Not even.
I limp in with what?
It was an odd year. It wasn't. It was an odd, one of the 5, 7, 9. Okay.
I limp in with king 7 of diamonds. Might have been, oh, anyway, whatever. Let's not guess the year. I limp in with king 7 of diamonds at the final table under the gun.
Okay.
Weird play. And it goes, everybody folds, and the blinds both call, and the flop comes down king, queen, 9. And I'm like, all right, I trapped these guys, right?
All right.
And so they both check. I fire. The guy who has 10 jack smooth calls. The guy who has queen 9 raises. I call the raise, and then the 10 jack moves in, and then the queen 9 studies forever and folds queens and 9s. Great fold.
Okay.
And I decide that this is the same goofball that moved in with me with deuce 4 offsuit, and I could see he didn't have it. And I called him with ace 3 offsuit for a stack.
Okay.
Right. And I'm like, could he be doing some goofy move again, like 9-10 or, you know what I mean, or queen 10? Because he'd moved in with deuce 4 the day before and he'd sucked out on me for a big pot, I convinced myself to call. Now he flips up a straight. And now I'm like, wow, how did I put 70% of my chips in with one pair in this spot? How stupid was this? And I'm just like, oh my God. And I said, and I told my wife, and my wife is there, and I think my son Philip is there watching. They'd smuggled him in. I'm not going to say who because the gaming commission, but gaming commissions, their time to do anything is past.
Yeah.
My son's there and he's like 17 or 18. Okay. And I'm like, oh my God, I need diamond, diamond, or running pairs. And I think this guy's saying I folded queens and 9s, and boom, diamond, diamond.
Oh, beautiful.
And then I went on to win that bracelet. So you got to balance some of the bad ones with some of the good ones.
For sure. No doubt about it. All right, we're going to keep some of these. There's a lot of questions. So Phil, we're going to try to do a handful of these. Hi, Phil. One of your biggest idols. Please answer me the following. Let's go back to the idols. Tell me about the learning process. How did you go from being a donk like the rest of us to Phil Hellmuth?
Desperation. I talk about that a lot in my book, Poker Brat, and in my book, Positivity. Two things seem to motivate people in this planet. One is desperation. One is inspiration. And so there were just a lot of times where I just needed the money. I'd be down to 4-hand in a World Series tournament. Yes, I'm a bracelet guy, but I'd be like, all right, Jack McClellan, what's first, what's second, what's third? There's 5 of us left. Okay, I need to make the final 3. That means I can't play a hand unless it's really strong. Let everybody else bust themselves out. Desperation helped me a lot, and studying No Limit Hold'em. And when you're studying and talking with people about the game all the time, you're going to have certain observations that are going to help you. So I'd call it like my study group is like Mike the Mouth Mattisau and Brandon Cantu, and then people laugh. And I'm like, why would you laugh? These are great players. Well, they haven't gotten there in a while. Well, Mattisau just finished 24th at the Commerce main event, the last big poker tournament played. And I was helping him and he was helping me. And so talking about poker all the time helps. And then thinking back, there's a lot of times also I blew tournaments. I'd go back and say, all right, you made a mistake. You can't do that again. That's why I like the series, JG. That's why I like the series. Because if I blow a tournament one day, I can play No Limit Hold'em the next day. And if I blow that and I just keep fine-tuning and fine-tuning and fine-tuning, and that's what I love is my mind is always engaged. It is
special because even at like party poker or one of these series stops, it's amazing. We were in Rio, we had a good time, play the main, but when the main when it's out, the side event doesn't have the exact luster. At the World Series, all right, yeah, the main is the one to win, but every event you're playing for something so meaningful, and it's just right there. There's no flights. You don't have to wait a week, a month. It's just back to back to back to back. This is going to be my first summer that I'm not there every day with the baby coming, and I already miss it. I already can say, man, it's like not going to be the same, and you have all your friends out there, and everyone kind of gathers in. So I can relate with you. It's true. It's just so unique what they do.
Well, you're saying, JG, it's a festival of poker. It really is.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got some legends in the chat. What up, Poker Staples? Also, Cards Chat is here, Sheffield 16. We had to cut the stream because of difficulties. We're up to 45 live viewers. This will be on iTunes. This will be all over the board. Phil is quite a sport. Said didn't even put a time limit on us. We're going to have to, at some point, we're going to have to cap it. But Phil, between Instagram and Twitter, there are so many interesting questions. People they got some great questions, Phil. So,
What's up, Poker Staples?
He's in the building, man. Jamie Staples also was there, up for Streamer of the Year. I was there. Lex got it done. Twitch, pretty incredible. I know, Phil, you've dabbled, and I did want to mention about Twitch, YouTube, all this stuff, content, all the things you do. Do you feel that you suffer? Is it ever hard? Like mental strength in poker is so powerful. Do you ever find it hard to block out all that's going on? I know you use Brian and Poker Royalty. I've used those guys as well. Trying to have key people in your life to help manage and organize stuff, because when I would imagine for you, you have a good way of blocking stuff out. That when you go play, it's time to play. You're not on your phone so much. You try not to be. Talk about that a little, because that's something I struggle with. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all this stuff. I have help, but I'm still distracted a lot, and I don't get to play as much as I would like. How do you deal with that? Can you answer that on how you deal with?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah, how to balance the life. It's a really difficult thing to do. I mean, I had someone who was a full-time CEO of all my companies. And then when 2012 came and the UIGA came along, I realized I was spending $65,000 a month. And then of course I won the main event in Europe for $1 million, and the $1 million went so quickly. I was like, whoa. So we had to cut down our expenses. I'm doing a lot more myself now. One thing I'll tell you, JG, is this. Yes, I joined the advisory board for Lasso Socks. Love it. That's going to be, we're going to have some big announcements with some huge athletes investing, but when I talk to Lasso, for example, when I talk to Partha, I say, hey, listen, what I can do is I can make 1 or 2 key helps for you, and I can help a little bit with social media, right? Maybe I'll put you in touch with Draymond Green or Andrew Bogut or Steph Curry or Tiger Woods or somebody like that, right? And then I can also put you in touch with my billionaire friends, of which they have 5 of the biggest funds in the world, VC funds, when we need to raise money. And so, but then it's understood it's a limited relationship as far as I'm going to add whatever value they gave me. If they give me 1% in stock or 2%, I've entered 30 deals like this. I've always added value. But JG, in that spot, I am very open that my biggest weakness is my time. And the minute the World Series of Poker starts, I am going to do no business for 2 months. Now, every year, there's always a deal that I'm about to close. I mean, I'm involved with so many business deals.
Phil, we're basically brothers in business now. We 5 businesses we're investing together. It's kind of
TravelSmarter.com.
Yeah, I can show you that.
Lasso Socks.
Yep.
bspot.com, which is pretty amazing.
Yep.
Where you can actually, have you talked about that, where you can gamble?
That's
you and I started a talent agency for esports.
That's true too. And the other one we can't
we're about
talk
to
about.
Invest in.
We can't even talk about the other one yet, which is probably the most exciting, I think. Well, not actually. I don't even want to say that because they're all uniquely exciting. But there's another one that's like, just the fact that it hasn't been talked about or announced is like, it's exciting. But they're all exciting. But yeah, it's 5, legitimately 5. Who knows? I didn't even know you were in B Spot initially because we came at different times. But it's crazy, man. We're in like a business vortex. Like, I mean, it's wild.
That's my term, business vortex. I'm going to start hashtagging business vortex because everything I'm touching is turning to gold and platinum. It's crazy. I don't even understand it. It's been like this for months.
Phil, that's
it
not
just
a
seems
bad
like
thing.
all these
2019, it's time, man. It's time to run hot. You've done the poker thing. Now you're diving into.
Boy, you run hot in business, you're going to make 100, 200, 300 million. It's beautiful to run hot in business. I'm running hot. I have a long ways to go to get to 100 million, but I'm running hot and it's been beautiful. And it's better than running hot in poker, except that my stated goal is to become the greatest poker player of all time. But JG, I will say this: the one thing that I do that's kept me looking 10 years or 15 years, hopefully younger than I am.
You do look young,
is
Phil.
That
not that you're old, but I'm just saying, like I had to look the other day just because I thought you were like 42. I promise you.
I'm 54, and everyone's shocked when they hear it. I sleep in every day, and then. JG, I mean, I'm getting slammed with all these K1s from all these funds right now. I'm just passing them on to my accountant. We're investing in 2 new things. My wife and I have to sign this. My wife and I have to sign that. Some options we have to pay taxes on, even though the company. So it seems like I'm spending an hour or 2 a day or 3 doing business, but then I get to sleep in every day. And, once 6 o'clock comes, my wife and I are sitting on the couch. We're like any boring couple watching Billions on television, watching, watching our favorite TV shows and just kind of chilling out and ordering from DoorDash, getting some like the room service of Palo Alto for me,
Yep.
and just kind of chilling and having just a really nice life. And I'll walk to the coffee shop when I get up every morning. There and back's only a half a mile or less, back and forth, but at least I get a little walk in. I'm trying to walk 10,000 steps a day,
Yep.
and I'm home 5 weeks straight. So my voice is a little sore from the poker awards Friday night, from emceeing all day at the Aria, and so, but I'm almost fully recovered from that. I slept 12 hours one night. And so if you want balance, I think you need sleep. And I think you can't, those minutes where you feel like you have too much going on and you feel buried, then I kind of, sleep more and I write down, all right, this is what I need to do today. This is what I need to do tomorrow. And I know this with you. I don't even have to ask you, but your emails build up and you're like, shit, there's something I was supposed to do from 2 weeks ago. And then when you finally are relaxed, you go back and finish that thing from 2 weeks ago and a week ago, and, get kind of everything online and the important stuff you're going to finish. And so there's a nice balance there, JG, but you have to watch your health because you're on the path to make hundreds of millions of dollars. You're one of the few guys in poker that's really focused on business and spreading yourself across the board, but you are going to need to make sure that you don't,
Burn out.
over commit. Yeah, you can't burn yourself out. And another piece of advice for you specifically, JG, you're burning a lot of energy doing the streams every day during the series. That takes a toll on you.
No, yeah,
I understood when I was taking.
YouTube. I agreed. There was, what happened to me? I had my first two non-profitable WSOPs the last 2 years, and I was like, man, I'm doing Raise Your Edge. I'm doing this other stuff. I'm a much better player than I used to be. I'm like, what's happening? And I looked at it and I was like, man, I came in, there was a lot of days I was doing YouTube videos, titles, editing, all these different things. And I was like, man, I'm starting at 5, 6 o'clock. There were a lot of times I was registering 10, 15 blinds in these 1Ks, 1500s. And I was like, you know what? Because you'll late reg sometimes. There's nothing wrong with the late reg. But in some of those 1Ks, when you come in with 10 blinds or, if you come in and when you play a tournament and you're
not enough.
It's tough, man. I was wondering what's different than the other years, and you can say variance and some of that for sure, but there was definitely a lack of concentration. I'm on my phone a lot, and just kind of being realistic with what I'm doing and realizing that the focus isn't all there. So, I think there's.
I will tell you this. I was staking 6, 7 guys at once.
Okay.
And I'm a master at talking to people. So I would keep an eye on them, and when they were deep in a tournament and had a lot of chips, I'd have to go over there and talk to them, or they'd say, Phil, I need to talk to you. And I was a master at calming them down, but that took so much energy from me playing and just focusing on me.
Yeah.
I understood it, and I stopped staking everybody, got out of that game by 2000. I told Phil Ivey, I said, you're going to stop staking everybody because it's a pain in the ass. He was staking 10 or 15 guys, moving a million here, a million there. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, I warned him it's going to happen. And he said, I'm not sure. And then, of course, a year later, he dropped everybody. He kept one horse. And, because it's a distraction. There's a ceiling on what you can accomplish when you're actively using energy on other things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. It's I've done that. I have it down to a couple pieces and stuff, which is a little different than staking because it's like less committal. You can buy a piece, which is kind of fun. I know I'm shouting out Stake Kings. I know you do stake, but where you can buy a piece of people, which I think is fun and it's cool. But like the staking part of it is a lot of work. And not saying if you're playing as well, staking is great. If you can't play, if you want to do it as a business, but if you're actually playing and dealing with that, you got to meet people, you got to get money. I mean, you're on your phone that much more. It's a lot of headaches. So I think that's true too. Trying to get rid of distractions and be as focused as you can. That's a good point. And I think a lot of people.
Yeah, JJ, you have to prioritize. Do you want bracelets or do you want to, you might just take a week where you say, you know what, I'm done streaming for this week. I'm just going to completely focus on poker. Let's see how I do. Now, variance might not be with you that week, but I think you'll feel better. You'll have more energy and you'll go deeper. And I think you'll notice it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
For me, I always drag the business with me. And it's always like the second or third or fourth day of the World Series. And I'm still doing business. And I'm like, stop. That's enough. It's affecting you. And then I'll just kind of so every business deal I've entered, Partha, who's a great young CEO for Lasso Socks, and we have a Champ Bailey in there, right?
Yep.
And some other celebrities are coming on board, and it's going to be a fun mission. But he knows once May 28th pops by, I'm going to be just playing poker, and I will do that.
Absolutely, that's smart. I mean, it makes sense, man. It's your time, and you get everything else done. But when it's there, it's game time. It's game time. Let's dive into a few more of these. Who was the toughest opponent you ever compete with, or who was the funniest player? I guess the toughest and the funniest. I guess, yeah. What comes to mind?
I'll say toughest opponent was, Drunk Lane Flack.
Okay.
Because Drunk Lane Flack was unstoppable. Lane Flack has like 5 bracelets.
Back-to-back Flack. I know, Lane. We played at. We played the golf thing. Remember that at Shadow Creek with me, you, and him, and I think it was, I forget who, Mike and who else, but that was him there. He does like to have a few drinks and play golf. I know that.
Right, and so I kid him. I started calling him in my books Drunk Lane Flack, because Drunk Lane, you just couldn't bluff. Drunk Lane, when it comes 9-9-8, and you check raise him with nothing, he just puts in $1 million all in with an 8 with a jack kicker. Okay. Because he knows it's good. That's dangerous,
he's
man.
Got radar.
When you're playing,
he's got spidey senses.
Yeah, when you're playing against a guy and it's, how, you just blew your whole stack. If it comes 9-9-8 and you're shoving in your stack with an 8 and the other guy has something, you blew all your chips for no reason. That's powerful. It's like saying, I know you don't have it. And so he made me sit on my hands a lot in the day. Phil Ivey's always been a tough opponent for me as well. Ivey's been lucky against me so far in our lives. When we filmed the cash game, raised pot, it somehow comes 10-9-7. I finally have top set, and I'm ready to boogie, and somehow he has 6-8, I'll never forget, we're 7-handed at the LAPC. I have ace king of hearts, and I just 7x raised at the hand before. 7x. And so I raise it with ace king of hearts and the cutoff, and Ivey's on the button with aces somehow. Wow. And 2 million, and I have 4.3 million. And all of a sudden he has 4 million and I have 2 million. That was cold. Just the timing of that coming down, the hands but I told Ivey I'm going to get even with him. And he said, yeah, I know you will. He said, I just hope I'm up 3 or 4 million before you get even, which was a pretty funny line.
Certain guys seem to hold over. They just kind of play you particularly well against you. I definitely have guys who I think stand out as being tough. What about funny?
Funny. I would say, I really enjoy playing with Negreanu at my table. Really enjoy it. He has a lot of energy. There's a lot of laughter there. There's a lot of pleasantness in the air when we're at the table together. I think sometimes Phil Ivey can be really funny. He and I enjoy being at the same table. I also like playing with Mattisau, can be really funny sometimes, Mike the Mouth, when he and I are at the same table. There's some guys with some real dry senses of humor as well, but even Fedor Holtz had a few pretty funny jokes when we played together.
For sure. I'd agree with those sentiments. Let's kind of knock through some of these, because I do want to, again, you're going to be a multiple podcast guest if you choose. I would love that. So we don't, we can always, I do want to get some of these questions down, and then we can do always more later. Your first bracelet, 1989, was the one you enjoyed the most. I think that's got to be obvious. And well, I would assume that's the case. What is the one the most important? Let's take that out of it. Which is the one that you think was there ever a dry spell, or just one that just was so powerful, or Players Championship? What's one that stands out besides the main?
Players seem to have, what people don't understand, players seem to have these lulls that they go through, and it seems to happen around your age, maybe a little bit older. It just seems like if you looked at the history of poker and you looked at the results that people have had from, say, the age of 34 to 40, it's just weird how they don't win as many bracelets. I don't understand it. I've just noticed that it occurs. It happened to Daniel, Ivey, me, at least. And there's other players it happens to. There seems to be that kind of little dry spot there for a few years that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, winning one in 97 was nice, because I hadn't won one since, I guess it was 93. Mm-hmm. So I won one in 97. And then I won one in, I want to say 2000 or 2001. Winning one of those was kind of nice. Also, winning my first non-Hold'em bracelet was nice. Winning a Raz tournament was nice. I'd been down there so much, and everybody's like, Phil can only play Hold'em. And, even though we knew, even back then, we knew in 2015 or whenever I won it, 2015 was my first Raz, I think. We knew that if you looked at Daniel's $25,000, he has this contest where we measure your points. So I was the points leader for 6 years. I'm still the points leader. So if you take all the years Daniel has done this, I'm on top. The first 5 years, I'm on top. The first 7 years. So we knew that I was getting there in all the games, but still they want to find some way to criticize me. Right. Maybe because I'm too cocky and talk about myself too much. And so their criticism is Phil can only play Hold'em. Well, that went out the window. Yeah. And then Phil can only win Hold'em bracelets. Well, now I've won 2 Raz bracelets in a second. And I've made final tables in almost every game in the last few years.
Okay, so that was I get it. During that period of time, 34 to 40, it's a time where you feel there's some drought. So kind of snapping the drought that stands out, gets you back some confidence. It sort of segues us into the next comment here. What are some of the things you do when a downswing's occurring? I guess either tournaments or cash to try to reverse the trend. Is there anything you remember being in a funk or just something that it kind of gets you out of one? Because obviously it happens different times.
By the way, come back to that question in a second. I'll say something that I think everyone would think is very interesting. There's been 2 or 3 times in my life where I just had no confidence, and one of those times was probably in 97 before that series. And another time was probably in 1999. And then I went on that historic run where I made 50 final tables from January 1st to the 2003. It's crazy. And like in huge tournaments. But can you imagine that coming into 2000, I remember coming into January, we had a tournament, I believe it was at the Rio Hotel, not at the Rio. Yeah, maybe it was the Rio. I had no confidence. And I was just like, and I was like, yeah. And I'd been beaten up a little bit playing at the Bay 101. I'd won 50,000 straight, but I'd lost back 40 of it. But I slowly lost the 40 back out over a couple of months. And so my confidence was just really low, and everybody's telling me how great I am, and I didn't feel great. Everybody's like, I want to meet with Phil. He's great. And I didn't feel great. I felt the opposite of great. I didn't feel like a fraud because I know I'd done what I'd done, but, and then all of a sudden it just kind of happened where I just started winning and winning and winning and winning. But I think during those times, you're really searching for what can I do? And it's during those times when you don't feel great that you're really refining your skills, where you're really seeing things the most clearly, where you're really working hard. Yeah. And then boom, the results just hit for years. And so, we have these lulls, and sometimes the way to get it out for me, to come back to that question finally, is to say that almost every time I'm on a losing streak, and JG, it's almost unbelievable to say this. I hadn't lost 3 years in a row, 3 times in a row. I hadn't lost for years. I hadn't had a losing month for years. When I finally lost 3 times in a row in 2015, that was the only time in a 6-year period I had 3 losses in a row. So what do? The first loss pisses me off. The second loss really pisses me off, and I examine every hand, and I always come back to the same thing. Play super, 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 super tight. And it's amazing how effective when you play Hold'em, and how often you win when you get back to that.
Get back to the fundamentals, some starting hand ranges, just to tighten up a bit. Yep.
I just cut it way down, because when you're on a rush and you're winning everything, 7-8 suited's hitting and everything's great, you know what I mean? You just open your range up and you're winning more money. And then just boom, I just shut it down. And so it's weird how I've really lost 3 times in a row. Now it's happened to me in 2019. I lost 90,000. Draymond Green was at that game. He flew into Vegas to play with us. I had a bunch of my Chicago billionaire friends. I lost 95K at a time. Now I've won 85 back, but not within a month. So I've had my first losing month. So if you stretch it over 2 months, I'm almost even. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, it's part of the game. It's important. I think that's one of the things with amateurs and pros, or rec fun player, however you say it. It's like when things aren't going so well, not to press it, or to look at how can you adjust it versus just pushing through. And then when you're hot, knowing how to press, and when you're not, to lay back a bit and adjust. So I think that's true for for pros in general.
My fallback gear is super tight. All right, continue.
Let's see. Let's go. If you could go back to one of the presents, back in time to be present at one of the moments in life that you missed out on as a poker player, which would it be? I guess I would maybe take that as a period of your life, or is there a time maybe I'm not sure I'm going to interpret the question correctly, but is there a period of time you wish you could do over, or you would have played less poker, or more, done something differently? Is there anything you kind of feel like you missed out on over your poker career?
So I read that question a little bit differently than you. I thought the question was more asking, is there a pivotal moment in the history of poker you would go back to? But rather than answer that, I'll answer what you said, which I think is even a little bit better. And if I could ever go back in time and change something that I did in poker, I think there's a time where I would go back to, there's two places. One would be 1993, where I won 3 bracelets and I had the chip lead in the main event in 1993. So I won 3 bracelets in 93 and I had the chip lead in the main event. And my mind was blown. It's like nobody's this good. It's like I told myself, you won 3 bracelets and now you're chip leading the main event. It's impossible. Like my mind was so blown with success that I just completely fucked it up from there. And so, it would be nice to go back maybe to 1993 at when I had that chip lead and just say, all right, Phil, of course you're going to be the greatest of all time. Settle the fuck down and play better. Also, the year that Carlos Mortensen won, I could have played better at that final table in the main event. I think I finished 5th. And so I go back and I think, so if I had to go back to change anything, for me, it would have to be main event related as far as, my poker life goes.
Okay.
If I had to go back through poker history and watch one match, I don't know what that would be, but maybe Doyle Brunson versus Puggy Pearson or something. I don't know.
Okay. And what's your favorite movie so far in 2019? And what would it take to play a fun game of poker against you? But let's go with the movie. What's your favorite? Do you have a movie you like so far this year you've seen?
My wife and I saw movies we liked so far this year. I can't remember them, but I did see the new Avengers. I finally saw Captain Marvel, and I liked that. I'm not sure it was a great movie, but I liked it.
Okay, I haven't seen that
my
one.
wife and I saw a couple movies we liked. My memory's not there though.
I'm the same way. I've seen. I can't. So those are always hard. It seems so simple, but I can't remember anything I've seen recently as well. What a gangster. Can you ask Phil who would win in a boxing match now if he went up against Real Kid Poker? Big fans of all 3 of you legends.
I would crush Daniel, but I will say this. I mean, the reason I didn't want to have that boxing match with him is it was a no-brainer I was going to win because I have such a reach on him.
Yeah.
It's just a no-brainer I'm going to win. And then and everybody's like, he's going to end up with blood all over the place. And then everybody's going to like, oh, wow, Phil beat up Daniel. You know what I mean? I mean, like, but I will say that the last few times I've hung out with Daniel and I saw him on Friday night, he's really buffed up, and maybe we'd actually have a match of it, but I still don't think it would be that close. I mean, I'm going to have a lot of weight behind my punches because I'm going to step into him and the reach isn't going to be that much. And it's not like he's just going to be he's going to be quicker than me, but is he going to be really able to dance around? I mean, I just think I'm going to connect with something. And I think, I don't think it's going to be pretty then at that point.
Yeah, I'd have to bet on you, that's for sure. Which site do you believe is the best platform in 2019? I don't know how much online poker you're playing, but you're pretty in tune to the poker community in the world. What would you say right now to that?
I'm going to pass on that one because, obviously, there's a potential for me to be hired by Party Poker and Stars both, and so I'm just going to pass.
All right, you're in the mix though. Those are 2 names, two power sites for sure. There's no question. Those are the two competitors right now. Let's see. It's already 7:30. We had a little temporary cut, but let's try to speed through some of these films. Like I said, we'll have you back on here. I appreciate the time, and I know you got a lot going on, so I don't want to just keep you here all day. Although I'm sure everyone would enjoy that. Name what are the top 5 poker players of all time? What's your Rushmore?
I got to take myself out of it, right?
I think so. Just
I
to
got to
make
take
it,
myself out of this one.
Okay.
You got to say Doyle Brunson, because Doyle Brunson's been playing in the biggest games in the world for over 50 years. He still crushes. He has 10 bracelets. He's amazing. Then, I think I look at the biggest bracelet winners. Phil Ivey and Johnny Chan both have 10 bracelets. They've both been playing in the biggest games forever. So you got Ivey and Chan up there. And I look at bracelets a lot, Eric Seidel deserves respect, and he has a ton of bracelets, and he's done well on the high rollers, and he's played in some of the biggest games in the world for a long time. So to me, he has to be one of those guys. Bobby Baldwin's been playing in super, super, super high stakes poker games forever.
I just
and
played
he has a bunch.
some big games with him this year. I've played some of the biggest cash games I've ever played, and yeah, man, he's still battling. He won the main event back in, I believe that was 80. I'm not sure what year. You probably know 80. It was around your time, I think, and
Maybe even 70s.
yeah, it might have been the 78. Actually, you're right. It could have been. But so yeah,
Billy
Bobby
Baxter.
Yep.
Billy Baxter's a great one. Billy Baxter continues to win. Billy Baxter was winning you can't even make this up. He was winning like 4 or 5 million a year in the 70s, in the juiciest, easiest games you've ever seen. What does he do with all that money? You're making 3-4 million a year in the 70s, for God's sakes. And so Billy, they played his game low ball. He's the best low ball player in the world for sure, in my eyes, and has proven it year after year. He's always deep. He has a ton of bracelets. So that's a pretty good list right there.
I like it. Many people say that your style of poker is outdated, but at the WSOP you perform year after year while you seem to struggle with higher roller events such as the SHRB. I don't know if that's even a fair statement. Why do you think that is the case? Do the younger generation have an edge on you? So a couple questions there. You've touched on this already on how.
Yeah, I played in, I think, 3 super high roller bowls, and I have a 3rd place. So obviously I'm ahead and easily could have won that one. This year I kind of blew it in the super high roller bowl. That was my fault to finish 14th or 13th. I blew it. I just got tired or something. I don't even know what happened. But you look at, also we go back and we look at, the 1-drops at the World Series of Poker. I've only played in 4. I'm the only guy with 3 top 10s. So it's hard for me to believe that I haven't performed. I mean, compare me to every other player in the world. Most of these guys that play high rollers all the time played in 6 or 7 1-drops. I only played in 4. I'm the only one with 3 top 10s. So I kind of refute that. I think that, probably I'll win a big high roller soon.
That's fair.
Unfortunately, I blew the 100K buy-in high roller from like 2015 or so. I blew that one. I had 10 million massive chip lead at the final table. There were at least 100 players in that one, and I blew it. I mean, that was a sick moment for me. I remember that Duhamel had no chips and was moving all in every hand with 1 million in chips, and I had 10 million, and somehow he held that trophy. Dan Coleman was on my left, and I was just sure it was going to be Dan Coleman versus me in the finals, and I think Dan felt the same way, and we were both disappointed to not be in the top 2 there. That one really hurt. Very frustrating. But, people do say it's outdated, but my results are, if you compare my results to anybody else's results in the tournaments we've played, I probably have the best results of anybody. I still continue to crush, and I just can't play as many events. So I played in Brazil, and then I hopped in one tournament late there and finished 3rd.
Yeah.
There were 120 players.
I was there
So I played 2 or 3 events down there, had a 3rd place. When I went to the East Coast, I cashed in the WPT, and this just happens to be, oh my God, this thing's heavy. This just happens to be on my,
oh yeah.
That just
Borgata.
happens to be on the table I'm interviewing, but I won that this year in the heads up. 64 players, and I won 6 matches in a row. And my heads up match is still the best in the world by far. And I think I'm going to win many more heads-up bracelets.
Yeah, it's an exciting one at the WSOP every year, that 10K, which it's kind of funny how they do the refunds now with the 5K, and that's kind of seems to be always a guessing game what they do on a buy or not, but that's another story. I see a question here in the YouTube chat. Are you still optimistic for the future of poker for new players wanting to play full time? I think it's a great question. Being in the US and not being able to stream on Twitch freely, on Party Poker, it's frustrating. How do you feel about the future of poker? Are you optimistic? Do you think we could have another spurt? Do you feel good about, I see West Virginia passes. Michigan looks like it's going to end up passing on the second round here, most likely. How do you feel about poker in the US, and are you optimistic for another round of excitement?
Super optimistic. And what happened was Kerry Katz, who we talked about earlier, deserves a lot of this credit. So what happened? You go back to last year, 2018, one weekend in April, I'm going to guess April, there was $1 million guarantee at Thunder Valley. There was a 1.5 million guarantee in LA, and there was a $2 million guarantee in Philadelphia. That's $4 million in guarantees and $300 to $500 buy-in tournaments. They all hit their guarantees. They all flew over their guarantees. And at that point, I told myself, oh my God, poker is so strong right now. We have 14 days in a row on ESPN. We have all of these millions and $2 million guarantees hitting like clockwork. And then when I went to Bahamas, and we had 1,100 players in a $25,000. I was like, oh my God. So poker is going crazy straight up right now. And it's a pleasure to be a part of it. And I can tell you that, that at least on the lower level, there's crazy amounts of players showing up. We're going to have a tournament, the series, just going to have 25,000 players in one tournament this year at the World Series of Poker. I think we'll have 10,000 in the main event. And so, yeah, poker's in great shape and it's exploding again. Now, we had this explosion for a long time, on the back of internet poker and on the back of the fact we spent $2 billion a year globally on poker shows promoting the game. That happened with Full Tilt, Party, Poker Stars.
It used to be the high stakes cash game show that used to play on, which was amazing. I did want to talk about that some as well. I mean, that was sort of how all you Phil Locke, Antonio Negreanu, these guys playing on there. It was where poker really, my generation. Now it's Twitch for a lot of part, but that's where we grew up seeing you and kind of idolizing poker and watching these crazy cash game numbers. But it's true, like it's crazy now, the amount of production that goes in, the amount of money that's spent on it, and you can kind of feel it coming. Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff is great. And then what Kerry's doing, Poker Go, this is why poker has its boom. It's why in Rio, these series, Party Poker popping up, live stuff. And there's anywhere you want to go, there's tournaments now. The field sizes are big. You got WSOP circuits, and there's like, if you want to play a tournament any part of the world, you can go at any time. You could follow you could be in action the entire year. There's overlapping now. You actually have to make decisions because there's so many series now. It's crazy.
JG, there's tournaments 365 days a year, and on most days there's 2 or 3 tournaments right now. It's crazy. And the fields are ginormous. So we had this huge poker going like this. Then 2012, it got outlawed and we fell off for a while. And now, I always predicted a sonic boom, and now we're seeing the sonic boom again. Even before the legalization of all of the states, we have another sonic boom. So it's been fun and it's exciting to watch poker go.
Absolutely.
To watch poker go and to watch poker go.
Yes, poker go. Poker is flowing, that's for sure. So let's just do rapid fire on some of these. Do you play poker online?
I can't because I'm in the U.S. right now, and I'm the one guy that feels like if I start playing online poker and they're going to decide to bust somebody, I feel like they'd come after me. So I have to keep my reputation perfect for when someone wants to pay me a fortune to represent their company.
There you go. Where did you learn to samba dance? I got that on video. That's in my vlog. Where did you learn those samba moves?
The samba stuff was big. I didn't think there'd be such a global response to me making an entrance down there, but it was huge in Brazil, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm not sure that I know how to samba dance, but I spent 8 hours watching samba stuff, and I never got bored. It was like the Rose Bowl on steroids.
That was, man, that Brazil stuff. There was a lot of energy there. That was fun, and you definitely put on a show. Your entrances are second to none. That's for sure. Let's see, man. If tomorrow poker, casinos, and everything related gaming was banned all over the world, what would you do? That's an interesting question. What would you be doing if you weren't playing poker at all?
Well, now I know my path. I would I would definitely be an investor. So investing money in early stage companies, joining advisory boards, helping entrepreneurs connect with my billionaire friends has put me on a lot of advisory boards. It's also been fun to like Deck of Dice is a company I'm involved in, and that one I brought them to my friend Bill Lee. They pivoted their whole company in one meeting with Bill Lee, and that one I've done more for as far as the CEO calling me, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And now Deck of Dice, of course, you can play Liar's Poker on Facebook Messenger. There's a couple 100,000 people that are playing, and it's so much fun. That's our game.
That's crazy. Yeah, man. There's a lot of variations of poker too. I think when people start talking about no limit hold'em or even party poker and some of the other major sites are getting rid of the HUDs, the heads up displays. There was a tweet out about them clearing up the bots online. I mean, it's always going to be a game of cat and mouse, but I think that's kind of there's always whether it's short deck, 6+, this new fun game people are enjoying when you take out the 2, 3, 4s, 5s. There's 5-card Omaha. Poker is always going to be around. I think it just depends. Will No Limit Hold'em stick around? And even when you hear people are learning GTO or is it solved, it's a lot different when you're live in the flesh. And a lot of people misuse information, or it doesn't mean you just get to buy a solver or try to do some work and you become able to beat the game of poker. That you have to be able to do all the other things as well and apply it in the right situations and all that. So I think, poker's thriving. The numbers are up. I think we're in a really good spot right now in general. I think it's on trending upwards, and it seems to be people are starting to get, I feel, less of negative connotations. It seems like less, like I think people are respecting it more and are realizing that it's such a beautiful game, and that's refreshing to me, because I used to at times almost be not ashamed, but kind of like, oh, I play poker, and now I'm kind of like proud of it, or just like, I love it. And I think with you and myself being able to do some content, put the game in a positive light, we're really able to put the game in the light it deserves, and try to get more of these type of podcasts, YouTube videos, Twitch streams, Poker Go, and all that. It's important. It's important to show and get.
That's right, JG, and it brings to mind that one of the reasons why poker is taking off is all of these young Twitchers doing a good job, right? I mean, the Staples brothers and this Matt and the Stapes and Vanessa Cade and you and there's just like so many Matt Stapes and Jamie Stapes, right?
Staples, the Staple brothers. Yeah, it's endless.
I was right the first time. Yeah,
there's so many great content creators. It's true. It is. It's like there's something for everyone now, which is cool. You don't have to pick.
And I tune onto these streams now, and I'm following more of the younger players. The point is, you guys are doing a great job of building poker up through streams.
I got to give a shout out. Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I think you mentioned a lot of great ones. There's so many others. Matt Jarvis in the chat, interesting in early stage companies. Casino Hour in the house. Let's get you both on the board. Listen, Phil, I got Matt Jarvis, Jarfish, on the books there. He wants us on the board, Phil. That's in writing. We can go and replay it. So maybe we have to get on the board there as well. I see it. I see that offer.
we are looking at Casino Hour actually right now. So
why stop at 5? Why don't we do every business together? We gotta call offline and lock in a couple more. So why stop there? All right, Phil. I'm gonna cut down the last couple questions here. Again, I believe this is the longest podcast I've done. I would bet it. I think we're over 2 hours and change, 2:10 even.
I'm tired, JG. Make sure that name some of the other people that are doing streaming that I know, because I'm tired.
Like Hotted 89 crossover from gaming. You got All in Pav, Matt Staples, Kevin Martin, Lex Veldhouse, Spraggy, Easy with Aces, Tonka, Cordy B. It's endless on Twitch. Andrew Nemi, Brad Owen. There's so many good vloggers now.
Andrew and Brad, right? Love those guys, right? Yeah. Exactly. So there's so many that I missed, and
Jason
and I'm tired. This is my second interview. I've been interviewing for. I did an hour interview before this, so I'm a little tired. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced.
No worries, Phil. I really do appreciate the time. This is a long podcast, and also even guys like Doug Polk who are really polarizing. You hate him or love him, but I had a guy my first year.
Love him.
Yeah, you said you love him?
I love him.
Yeah, listen, I'll say this. The first summer when I did YouTube vlogs, I had my camera there, and I can't make this up. A guy is at the table, he sees me doing the video stuff, and he looks at me, and he's like, man, he's like, I'm waiting for him to say something. Maybe he's seeing like my Twitch or something. He goes, do you know Doug Polk? He's like, I love that guy. He said to me, dead ass, he said, this is the reason I'm here. This was like a 1500 WSOP event. I had just started vlogging. The guy was like, this is why I'm at the World Series. And that's when to me I realized, man, like it really matters. These vlogs, this content, people see it on there and it gets them back in the game or it gets them to check it out. And it's powerful. Joey Ingram as well, doing podcasts, content, all this stuff is great for poker. I think that's like another thing.
Love him too, Joey Ingram.
I felt a lot of, at some point, I think there was some streamers were getting slack, or even like Jamie Staples would get a lot of harsh criticism and stuff. People are talking shit, but I think ultimately the top like crushers, the super crusher, high roller players, they started to realize this is what if the game doesn't have this type of ecosystem where players are putting themselves out there and growing the game, there is no game. And at the end of the day, you see No Limit GG now. Those guys, Stefan Sontheimer, Fedor Holtz, Rainer Kempe, Neil Farrell, all these guys, they have a channel. They're streaming on Twitch and the Super Crushers, and they're not missing the boat too. Chance Korn has started a channel. Other guys are starting a channel. Michael Lonkar. People are getting into it because it's like if you love poker, why not promote it? Plus, build a business for yourself, get some revenue streams, get some deals, and it's fine. Like
JG, back in the day, it seemed like I was the only one that was building poker. I'm talking about in the '90s. I'm the only one that would fly in to do interviews in Vegas with the press, right? And Johnny Chan and Eric Seidel, they wanted to stay hidden so they could get into secret cash games, you know what I mean? And
right.
And then Negreanu, but it's a lot of work, man. I know that this young generation knows how hard Daniel and I have had to work. I mean, and I'm gonna say Daniel's worked harder than me, but I remember I was working like 360 days out of the year, in 07, 08, 09, 10. And I think Daniel continued to do that and was really kind of one of the hardest workers in poker. Yeah. It's really hard.
It is. And I'll just say this. I want to shout, I know I've met your wife briefly several times. Actually, I was at Burning Man and she came to our camp. I know she goes to Burning Man and we've chatted several times. And I know how much credit you give to her. And I'll say the same to my wife, Amelia. It is difficult being on the road, late hours, crazy. You're in a lot of spots where it's just like you have to have a lot of trust and respect. So that's been really nice to have a significant other that I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I know you said it, and I know that's true for you. It's the same for me. So it is nice to have a great support system, and you really have to. If you're marrying a poker player, it comes with some unknown territory and some learning and some respect along the way. I mean, I know my wife, her family, she's Brazilian, wasn't crazy about it and was kind of like, what the heck, So I don't know for you if that was hard, or you from the beginning you were together, but I'm sure it's family as well. It's not even just you; it's your parents, it's your relatives, it's their family, their relatives, kind of getting coached and understanding.
Dude, this was the 1980s when I got into it. Then it was considered like being a drug dealer,
right? Yeah. It's only probably gotten easier, and it's still not easy. I can't imagine. Was that a difficult conversation? Did you ever have a hard time with any of your family or hers where they were like,
my dad didn't want to even he'd get mad at me every time I came home for dinner. I'd just leave early. I'd be like, I can't handle this. This is what I'm doing for a living. And I'd leave and I'd just say, all right, I'm not going to come back for a week if you're going to do this. I'd come back and he'd start again. I'd say, I'm not coming back for a month. And that was kind of my way. If you want time with me, you're going to respect what I do. And so that was and then I'd come back. If you're going to start on me, I'm not going to come back for another month. And I would stick to those deadlines. You're just trying to get respect because my dad didn't understand it and nobody understood it back then.
Yeah. And I got to say, I will respect you and give you some credit as well on that front because I find myself, and it is different times, but there's only so much time. You have your family, your friends, you're playing a lot, and then you got to study or whatnot. I find myself sometimes finding it's like, well, am I going to put this video out? Am I going to do this podcast? Am I going to record this footage? Am I going to stream on Twitch or am I going to study? Because there's only so much time. It's very hard to do the content piece and then also work on your game and have other things. You see some of these guys, the Bonimos and the Ike Haxtons, Jason Coons and these guys at the top that are really, they're doing a ton of work off the table, but you kind of have to choose what you're doing and how you're doing it, and it is hard. So I want to say for you, credit for all the stuff you've done and all the stuff you do, as well as put time in and obviously keep up with your game, because it is not easy and there is only so much time out there. So it's hard. It's hard to do it.
It's also fun, JG. It's also fun for me to switch directions a little bit too. Like, I mean, I'm always going to be after World Series of Poker Bracelets. That's always going to be my number one, life. But the positivity, I started a whole movement. So I'm going to do another book. I'm talking about doing one on happiness and success, because a lot of people that are successful aren't happy. So that's a fun one. And I'm talking to 8 of the biggest people in the world about doing a book where I talk about their life habits. That's awesome. I mean, putting content out like this that can help people in their lives is great. And that's a big part of my future. But a bigger part of my future is still World Series of Poker Bracelets and poker.
That's absolutely. This is a great question here, and this is, I think, sort of on subject here. Hi, Phil. In your career, have you played with great poker players who are also great personalities? The late Devilfish, one of my favorites. I don't see that much these days with a lot of the current generations. Is live tournament poker becoming too mechanic? I think this feeds well into, you mentioned Negreanu, some other guys you enjoy playing with and having personalities, but I think that's something we are missing, is some characters at the tables and too much of the robotic stuff. You're playing for big money. I get it, the high rollers, this and that, some of the glorified TV stuff, but how would you say about that? Because, the Umberto Brennises and the characters and the celebrating, some of that's good for poker. The poker brat. It's almost like you got literally characters in like a movie, and that you don't see quite as much anymore. So how would you answer that?
I mean, Devilfish had a great reading ability. He got there. I mean, Devilfish was funny. He'd be like, Phil, the only reason I don't have any chips is I finally picked up kings and I had to put it in. So he would steal, and then he'd finally pick up kings and get them cracked by ace 4, and then he'd steal. He was quite a character, and he had 3 seconds, or he'd have 3 more bracelets in WSOPs. I look at Negreanu. Negreanu has a ton of talent, and I think he should have even more bracelets. Except sometimes I think he insists on following whatever the latest theories are, and it takes him out of his strength, which is reading people. But I think he could easily have 2 or 3 more bracelets. I do miss some of the characters, and I don't know. It's hard for me to explain why these characters, why we had characters then and we don't now. But I do think that a powerful personality helped you at poker. Whereas now, when you're sitting behind a computer screen, you don't need that powerful personality to make a bunch of money. And then you end up showing up in the real world.
Unless you're Twitch in front of the computer, you get to, there is definitely some
personality. Yes.
So there you go.
You need a powerful personality to Twitch.
Absolutely. Man, all right, Phil. I keep saying we're gonna cut it, and then I seen great things, so I really do have to wind down for your sake. I could keep going. My wife is very understanding. You've met my wife. One
more question.
All right. Okay. How many bracelets can you win? What's your
24.
What do you see when you're all said and done? What's the number in mind that would you say, man, I really did it?
Well, 24 to 30, I have to answer. I've always, from 1990, from the time I won 3 in 1993, I had a vision. Now, what does a vision mean? I mean, people are like, oh, Phil's so weird. Well, a vision might just mean something that adds up in your mind. I'm going to play for this many years. I'm going to win this many. But I always thought I'm going to win 24 bracelets. And then I heard Phil Ivey say he's going to win 30. And I thought, why not shoot higher? So I might as well go for 30 as well. But I feel like I'm going to get to 24. So I'm going to say 24 minimum, and hopefully more than that.
All right, and we did say last question. I want rapid fire. What's your favorite food?
Could be avocado.
It's a good food. Do you regret any of the antics on TV? Yes or no? Pause. Into a pause. All right. Next question.
No, I don't. It makes me look ridiculous, but I think it's great for the game. And in the end, it's great for me to be my natural, normal self.
Okay. Is there any poker players you admire? Can you rapid fire a few? Don't have to give reasons.
Kerry Katz for sure. Let me just think. I kind of, I don't know. I like Antonio and Daniel a lot. I mean, they're doing a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
In and outside of poker.
That's enough. What was the most reliable tell you've ever spotted?
Oh, I had a guy. Oh, I won a bracelet because of this tell.
Okay.
This guy would always, when it was my turn to act, he would push his chips forward, as if saying, "I'm going to call you." And then I knew for sure he wouldn't. So I won a bracelet because of him. He sat on my left, and every time I was getting ready to, so one time he bet, and I remember having 6-8, and the board was ace 9-10, and I'm like, all right, I know I have an easy fold here, but let me think about. So I grabbed my chips like this, and he went like this out of turn, and I said he's not calling, so I just moved in. Wow. And then he folded, studied a minute, and folded. So every time he wasn't going to call, and I'd look at him and get ready with my chips, he'd go like this. And so it was just he just told me. It was so beautiful. And I won a bracelet, I'm pretty sure, because of that one tell.
All right, and the real last question, because it ties into positivity, what are Phil's poker goals in 2019? I'm cutting the podcast after this question. Last one, poker goals 2019, Phil.
I always make my goals. I always think big and think bigger than might actually be able to accomplish. But then again, I've accomplished it. So I want to win 3 World Series of Poker bracelets and 2 WPTs. Now, in 2011, I did have 3 seconds at the World Series of Poker with these ginormous fields. So it can be done. That gave me fuel for 2012, where I ended up winning 2 bracelets. So it can be done. So yeah, I mean, 3 World Series of Poker bracelets and 2 World Poker Tour bracelets. That's the top of my goals 2019 sheet.
All right, there it is with the one and only Phil Hellmuth. We are giving away 2 109 tickets to Party Poker Power Fest. I am going to tweet those out, and Phil Hellmuth, tell me, I'm going to copy paste it. Just tell me when. You get to say the word when. Oh, bam. Positivity. Look at that.
Think big.
I got it. My signed copy folks. Right here. I got a sign right big. Here. Tell me when tell me when, Phil.
When for what?
For the 109. We're giving away 2 109 tickets, man. This is real cold hard cash giveaway. Courtesy.
All right, I'm going to say it. You ready?
Yep.
Now.
Boom. Sharon. We got a female Sharon winning a 109 ticket. All right, that's one. And actually, she doesn't. She's
4,
she's not.
3, 2, 1. Now.
All right. Boom. There's another one. Kevin Mathers. Wow. Kev Math just binked a 109 ticket right there. You got to respect.
Hi, Kev Math.
Holy shit.
Kev Math is great for poker. That's a supporter right there.
What a legend. We actually have one more because the one chick didn't follow the very simple instructions. So Sharon, unlucky, sorry to say. We're going to roll one more. Tell me when. Last one, Phil, and then we're going to cut the podcast. 3, 2, 1. Now. Boom. We got JF, just 2 initials. And he does follow instructions. He does have a 109 ticket. I'm going to message him. And Phil, literally, man, thank you so much. You are such a sport. I appreciate you for coming on here. We'll do it again. And I'll see you soon. And who knows, by the next podcast, maybe we'll be in 10 businesses together. We'll double it up. I'll see you soon, man.
You gave me some of that deal, Flo. Travel smarter and lassoer through you.
My man, right
Thanks,
there.
Thanks, brother.
Yes, of course. Anytime, Phil. Thanks for coming. We'll see you soon. That is Phil Hellmuth. Check out him on Instagram. Well, he has Twitch as well. He doesn't do it a ton right now, but he got Instagram, Twitter, and all the other socials. Give him a follow. Him. Check out his book, Positivity. Phil Hellmuth, the one and only 15-time World Series of Poker Bracelet champion. We'll see Phil soon. Thanks, Phil.